After putting up a down year in his first season wearing a Mets uniform, there was a lot of doubt cast on Francisco Lindor and that $341 million contract. Well, we went through a 2022 season, and guess what? Lindor led all shortstops in FWAR, proving once again that he is the best shortstop in baseball. On the show today, I'm going to discuss his long career success and how we saw that resurgence again in 2022. And I'm also going to dive into whether that contract is a steal compared to these other free agent shortstops that have signed, as well as where Lindor could end his career when it comes to rankings among the top shortstops in franchise history.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Now, Francisco Lindor signed a 10-year, $341 million contract extension before he even played a game in a Mets uniform. And after year one, there's a lot of fans out there that have buyer's remorse because while he really turned it on from June 1st on that season, it looked a lot more like the player we all expect him to be. Everyone saw the final season 230 average, the 322 on base, the 412 slugging, only 20 home runs, a WRC plus of 103, just slightly better than a league average hitter. They compounded it with a 2020 season with the Guardians that wasn't great either and said, look, this was an overpay. Why did Lindor get this money? Well, we just saw it play out over a full season. The Mets are not a 101-win ball club if not for Francisco Lindor. You can make a very clear argument that he was the best and most important position player on the Mets last season. There's three candidates, right? You have Jeff McNeil, who unlocks a lot with his versatility to play the outfield and the infield and who won a batting title, but still is not quite the overall player of a Francisco Lindor. While he's still good defensively, there's a difference between playing Gold Glove defense at shortstop than playing close to Gold Glove defense at second base while still getting your time in the outfield, right? You go to Pete Alonso. He drives the offense in a lot of ways. Had the 40 home runs, led the league in RBIs, but defensively leaves something to be desired. So, Francisco Lindor to have played 161 games for the Mets this season, to hit 270, to have a 339 on base percentage, which is, more in line with the career numbers we have seen. Really, you look at the career numbers of a 277 hitter, 342 on base, 270 average, 339 this past season. Right there, the slug was a little bit down from his career. 474 career slugging percentage. It was at 449 this past season. But you know what? He hit 26 home runs. He drove in over 100 for the first time in his career with 107 RBIs. And we look at weighted runs created plus a lot, right? WRC plus, measuring hitters based on a league average of 100. At 127, that was his second best offensive season to 2018 when he put up a 132 WRC plus, and his 6.8 FWAR also second best to that 2018 campaign. This was one of the best seasons of his career. Great argument to me that it was the second best season of a very, very long and storied career. And you look at what he did this year compared to other shortstops in baseball. You had 4 shortstops that had an FWAR over 6, and 3 of them were actually free agents this year. Dansby Swanson, 6.4. Trey Turner, 6.3. Xander Bogaerts, 6.1. But atop the list, Francisco Lindor at 6.8. You look at just the offense. Weighted runs created plus. As I already said, a 127 mark for Lindor. You got Trey Turner, 128. Bo Bichette, 129. Xander Bogaerts, 134. And then potential Met, Carlos Correa at 140. So top 5 offensive shortstop in baseball. Gold Glove caliber defense every single season. there's a reason why he got this contract, and that's where we get to his career. Since 2015, when he debuted, Francisco Lindor leads all shortstops in baseball in wins above replacement. How big is the separation? Well, let's look at, the top 5 here. Okay, so 5th, Corey Seager, 26.2. Go to 4th, Carlos Correa, 31.3. Not too far off from Trey Turner, who's just above him on the list, even though Turner actually played a little bit less games because he debuted a little bit later, really got his footing a little bit later than these guys. He's at 31.6. You have Xander Bogaerts at 34.0 flat, although he played not quite 300, over 250 more games than Correa. So you can make an argument which one is the better player between those guys. He's sitting at that 34 number. 8 wins ahead of him is Lindor, in less games than Bogaerts, by the way, at 42.0. He's been a great player for a very long time. He has one of, if not the best glove in shortstop in all of baseball. And he finally got his feet wet when it comes to playing in New York. I spent a lot of time going into last season discussing the comparison between Carlos Beltran and Francisco Lindor, 2 Puerto Rican-born players who have a rough first year with the Mets and then break out in year 2. Well, Beltran remained a very productive player throughout the remainder of his Mets career, and I see no reason why Francisco Lindor cannot do the exact same here and have just a great run of success where he makes that contract well worth every single penny of the $341 million, and that is what we will be discussing next. Is Francisco Lindor's contract actually the best of all of these top-tier shortstops that just got signed? I'm going to dive into that next, but first, today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and esports. They've got it all at BetOnline.net. If you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. BetOnline is always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today to see some MLB future odds if you want to bet on the Mets to win the World Series or to win the pennant or eventually soon. I think they'll have all the awards up there. So if you want to bet on Rookie of the Year, Cy Young, MVP, you can find that at betonline.net. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Back when Francisco Lindor made his debut, there was a crop of shortstops that was all bubbling to the surface at the same time that really seemed like this next great wave of shortstops, very similar to the old days with Nomar Garcia-Parra and Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez when I was a kid. We saw that kind of reborn when Correa comes up, Lindor is there, Corey Seager, all these great guys, Xander Bogaerts. Everyone became a free agent in about a 24-month span. Lindor got his money first because he was able to parlay, the success that he had in Cleveland with the capital the Mets traded to get him and leverage it into a new deal from a new owner. And so he gets the first big contract given out by Steve Cohen, $341 million over 10 years. Everyone called it an overpay, or a lot of people did, and if they didn't when it happened, they certainly were throughout that first season. Well, first of all, let's get to the contract dollar amount. Players get paid market value, and when Fernando Tatis signs a $340 million deal, Lindor, as the best shortstop in baseball over a long period of time, deserves $1 more, or in this case, $1 million more, right? That's completely acceptable and was a fair price based on when the Mets signed it. Now, the first season didn't go as planned. Well, we just saw year 2. He was worth every penny of that $34.1 million. And by the way, this is the first year of that actual contract kicking in. Now he goes into year 2. And you look at the other shortstops that have been signed. You got Carlos Correa. Well, now he got signed with the Mets potentially. 12 years, $315 million. With all of the issues right now with the medicals, if you're looking at what's a better contract currently on the Mets books themselves, Lindor by far the safer contract. And that is why there's still all this deliberation on a Correa. Because you're not just talking about paying for his age 28 through 33 seasons here. It's 28 through 40. And that is where I think a lot of the skepticism comes when it relates to the medicals, is trying to project forward beyond a decade. Corey Seager, he's on a 10-year deal, age 28 through 37 seasons, just like Lindor. He's getting paid $325 million, so that is $32.5 million a season. So essentially, you're talking about the same contract. Lindor making a little bit more, but when you break it down by year, and it's $1.6 million more for the Mets, in the grand scheme of your roster building, I mean, that's what, a relief pitcher? It's not like that is really changing things for the Mets. So it just becomes who's the better player. And if you look from 2016 through 2022, which is, kind of taking off their rookie season where maybe the playing time or the opportunities were a little bit uneven, you got Lindor with a 38 F4. You got Corey Seager at 24.7. Is Seager a better offensive player in a vacuum? I would say maybe he is. But how confident are you that Corey Seager is going to be able to continue to man the position of shortstop for 9 more years? I think with Lindor, there's not a lot of questions there. I think he could still be a great defensive shortstop for at least, the first 7 years of that. I mean, taking him through his age 35 season, and maybe at some point there's a drop-off in range where if the Mets were to theoretically 7 years from now have some stud shortstop prospect, you never know where the future could hold for Lindor, or maybe he becomes a great second baseman in the final chapter of his career. We're really looking far out into the future, but again, based on the defense, based on the career track record, yeah, I like Lindor more than Corey Seager. Trey Turner, well, he just got a $300 million contract for 11 years, age 30 through age 40 seasons. He's making $27.3 a year, and his F4 since 2016 is 31.6. Lindor is again higher at 38. Look, Trey Turner can be a better player in any given season. And you can make the argument over the last 4 years maybe, Trey Turner could be the best shortstop in baseball. Here's the thing, though. Personally, age 38, 39, 40 seasons scare me. Age 36 and 37 seasons for a shortstop that has his game predicated on speed scares me. Trey Turner, I think, was one of the best signings of the offseason. I mean, the Phillies needed that. He's perfect for them. He's going to make them better. But you're looking at the first 5 years of that deal where you feel really confident in Trey Turner. What's the last 6 going to look like? A guy that, could sometimes be a little bit of a free swinger. If the power diminishes a little bit, if the speed comes down, just athletically, he regresses. He does not have the same type of game as Lindor that could age better, because Lindor's always going to have the soft hands. Lindor's always going to have the incredible baseball IQ and instincts at shortstop. Turner doesn't quite have that defensively. And hell, there were some moments down the stretch of the season into the playoffs where it didn't even look like he was that great at the position whatsoever. Now, is he still going to be the Phillies starting shortstop this year? Yes. Will he be their starting shortstop for the next 5 years? Most likely. But at some point, Trey Turner could be a second baseman. And I think that time comes sooner than Lindor's because, one, he's older. And two, even though, athletically with his speed, he is right out there with Lindor, I just think overall as a defender, Lindor has the game that's going to age better. So when you're looking at paying for a guy and paying for those seasons in his late 30s into his 40s, I like the Lindor contract more, even if it costs more on an average annual basis. Then finally, you get to Xander Bogaerts. Average annual basis, $25.5 million, nothing crazy, but an 11-year deal for Bogaerts. 11. Paying him through age 40 season. I'm not mad at anyone that would say, hey, I want that Bogaerts contract because I can trust him more offensively. But man, Lindor was pretty damn good with the bat this year, and you can hope for multiple Gold Gloves in the future. Xander Bogaerts might not even be a shortstop by the end of this season. I mean, he's the starting shortstop now, but do I really think that he's a better shortstop than Manny Machado? No, but Machado's playing third. Do I think he's a better shortstop than Ha-Seong Kim? No, he had to move over to second, though, to accommodate Bogaerts. Do I even think he's a better shortstop than Jake Cronenworth might be? Not entirely sure on that one. And you also have Fernando Tatis looming. I do not fault the Padres at all for saying, look, we have this money to spend. Let's get the best bat available. And at that stage of the offseason, after they whiffed on Turner, and did they even make the run at Correa? I don't even know if they did. Well, they did make the run at Judge. So, I mean, they did have money to spend in that sense. But, when they lost out on those two top free agents, they settled in on Bogaerts. They got a big bat for the lineup. It's a great signing. But compared to the one the Mets made, I like Lindor going through his age 37 more than Bogaerts going through his age 40 season. That's just how I feel about it. So I think anyone who was worried about that contract now could rest assured that he's getting paid what he should based on the play that he has provided. And can expect more and more of that from Lindor into the future, which is why I believe in short order he will be considered the greatest shortstop in franchise history. I want to discuss that in just a minute, but first, today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. We just got through the holidays, and I know my goal is to eat a little bit healthier this year. So if you're like me and you want to eat healthier too, but you don't want to compromise taste, then you should probably go out and grab some Built Bars. What makes them so good is they're healthy for you. They come covered in 100% real chocolate with some unbelievable flavors like the churro, the peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. These bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is they're only 130 calories, only have 4 grams of sugar, but with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you actually don't even have to wait for your box to come in the mail, because for years I've been discussing ordering Built at Built.com. Now you can just go to your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right, head to the nearest Walmart today, walk into the pharmacy section, grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, coconut puffs, or double chocolate. Also, if you choose to go to Sam's Club, you can grab a 13-bar box with their hit flavors, the brownie batter, and churro. You can thank me later. Go out and try Built Bar today. Right now, I think a lot of people would argue that Jose Reyes is the best shortstop in Mets franchise history. He had a lot of success, All-Stars, Silver Slugger, batting title, really good career with the Mets. Obviously, there's the whole off-the-field incident with his wife when he was a member of the Rockies, the domestic violence incident that will put him to a lot of Mets fans in a place where you don't even want to root for him, acknowledge he was part of the franchise's history. And I respect those decisions. But based solely on play, Reyes was the guy. And if you've gone to Citi Field, even in recent years where Reyes was a Met or when he came back for Old Timers Day, still beloved in a lot of ways from the fan base. So that's kind of the standard. That's really the answer right now, I think, of who's the best franchise shortstop. And you just have to wonder, when will Lindor pass him, because it is absolutely inevitable. You look at Reyes' career at the Mets. He was a 282 hitter. Lindor's at 253 in his 2 seasons, but just hit over 270. And, the on-base percentage and all that stuff was up. It's hard to look at his career with the Mets because that first year dragged it down. But just to compare the two, even with that bad 1 year that's really watering down his numbers, Lindor might not be there when it comes to batting average, but on base percentage, he's 2 points off. Reyes 334, Lindor 332. Slugging, they have an identical 433 slugging percentage. Career OPS with the Mets in Reyes was 768. For Lindor, it's 765. If we go to OPS plus, which is league adjusted, Reyes was a 104 career OPS plus with the Mets. Lindor at 114. Now, granted, Reyes, that could be a reflection of better offense in the league during his real Mets playing career as opposed to Lindor. But regardless of that, for Francisco Lindor, you have now a 9-year runway to add on to that great season you just put up. When it comes to home runs by a shortstop, RBIs, FWAR, all of those stats, runs scored, just straight up at bats, no one is going to get more run than Lindor is about to get. So that alone, as a compiler, could put him above Reyes, outside of stolen bases, right? And triples, maybe. But then you get into the leadership that Lindor can display. The team's success that you expect the Mets to have in these next 9 years, where Steve Cohen's going to do everything he can to deliver at least one championship, if not multiple. And Lindor is going to be a central figure in all of that. And I think, he just put behind that year where we saw the struggles and put up, the second best season of his career. I don't see any reason why that can't continue. And again, I alluded to Carlos Beltran because very similar career arcs. Ages are similar. When they became Mets, Beltran came over at 28, Lindor 27. Go from a small team in the AL Central for Beltran, the Royals, for Lindor, the Indians/Guardians now. And then, you look at the first year, and I already brought up the stats on Lindor. You go back and you look at what Beltran did. He hit 266, 330 on base, 414 slugging, a 744 OPS. He only hit 16 home runs. The following season, 41 home runs, 116 RBIs. He hit 275, 388 on base, 594 slugging. He was fourth in MVP voting. He won a Gold Glove. He won the Silver Slugger, and he led the Mets a game away from the World Series. And I know he struck out on that pitch. I know it's the worst thing a player's ever done in a Mets uniform, the way Mets fans treat it. I will remind you, though, that in the playoffs that year, particularly in that series, he hit 3 home runs. He was a 296 hitter against the Cardinals in that series, a 387 on base, 667 slugging. He was very, very good. And, if it wasn't for him, you would have been even in that position anyway. So everyone's going to remember that one strikeout, but Beltran was amazing in 2006. He went on in 2007, put another all-star season up with 33 home runs, 112 RBIs, 276 average, 353 on base, 525 slugging, won another Gold Glove, won another Silver Slugger, won a Gold Glove again the following season, so 3 Gold Gloves in a row for Carlos Beltran. Was banged up for a couple years, or banged up for 2009, although he was still an all-star. 2010 banged up as well, then 2011. Had a good, first part of the season, got traded to the Giants in the final year of that contract. Lindor could very well settle in now, just like Beltran did, and post 9 great seasons. Maybe not 9 great, but let's just say he gives you 5 more great seasons over the next 9. Or even, let's just say it's 3 great seasons like the one he just put up, 4 seasons that are good. Better than what he did in 2021, but not quite what he did in 2022. And even if there's 2 average to slightly below average seasons mixed in, this is a very good player that's going to help you win. And I just think having that stone solidified force at the shortstop position, it's what every team in baseball wants. That's why Trey Turner gets paid. That's why Dansby Swanson gets paid. That's why Corey Seager got paid a year ago. That's why even a Correa was going to get paid that way from the Giants. Teams want that position locked down. The Mets did an incredible job getting the guy that has been the best at it since he debuted, and he should continue to be the best at it moving forward. Anyway, that's going to be all for today's edition of Locked On Mets. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show, at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today, hosted by Peter Bukowski. Locked On Sports Today is where you want to go to stay today with everything going on around the sports world. You can follow Locked On Sports Today on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get podcasts.